My name is Ava Hayes. I'm 30 years old, and I live in New York City. The ballroom was full of fake smiles and glittering lights. My father's retirement gala. He stood on the stage, holding a glass of champagne, soaking in the applause. I stood near the back, invisible. I owe everything to my sons, he said into the microphone. My brothers, standing beside him, puffed out their chests. They are my legacy. The crowd cheered. I just watched. I was the daughter who built half his empire. I was the one who cleaned up my brother's expensive mistakes. My name was nowhere. I never got a plaque. He raised his glass higher. And my daughter Ava, he said, and the crowd laughed a little. Well, she just never had what it takes. My heart didn't break. It went cold and hard. I started walking. The sea of people parted for me. I walked straight to the stage, right up to him. His smile faltered, confused. I held out the small black box, the one with the simple red ribbon. From your biggest failure, I said. My voice was quiet, but he heard it. I turned, walked off the stage, and straight out the main doors. I didn't look back. As the heavy doors clicked shut behind me, a new sound cut through the music. It was his scream. But before I tell you how everything flipped and subscribe, drop a comment, where are you watching from? I was 8 years old when I first understood my place. My father's office was a kingdom. It was all dark wood, leather chairs that hissed when you sat in them, and the smell of expensive cigars and old books. I was allowed to sit on the floor in the corner with my coloring books. I had to be silent. My brothers, Mark and Thomas, were 12 and 14. They were allowed to sit in the chairs. I was never interested in the coloring books. I was listening. You don't buy the company, boys, my father said, his voice a low rumble. You buy the land it sits on. You buy the debt. You own the bank. You own the business. That's power. Mark was kicking the leg of the desk, bored. Thomas was trying to balance a pencil on his nose. They weren't listening. I was. But Dad, I piped up, my voice small. What if the land floods? Or what if the bank has bad loans? My father's head snapped toward me. He didn't look impressed. He looked annoyed. Ava, what did I say about interrupting? Business isn't for little girls. Go find your mother. She's not home, I said quietly. Then go play with your dolls. Mark, Thomas, pay attention. I went back to my corner. I watched them. He spent an hour explaining leveraged buyouts to two boys who didn't care. I sat in the corner and understood every word. It didn't matter. I was the girl. Love in our house had a price. It was not given freely. It was a bonus paid out for performance. But the rules for performance were different for me. When my brothers got C+s on their report cards, my father took them for ice cream. C's get degrees, boys, he'd laugh. It's about charm, not just books. I brought home straight A's. I was a perfect student. My father would glance at the paper. That's nice, dear, he'd say, before turning back to the Wall Street Journal. But don't be a know-it-all. Men don't like that. I learned to be quiet. I learned to watch. For my 16th birthday, my father gave me a new calculator. A very expensive, very complicated one for advanced calculus. You're good with numbers, Ava, he said, patting me on the head. A good skill to have. A week later, it was Thomas's 16th birthday. My father took him to the garage. He pulled a silk sheet off a vintage red convertible. He handed Thomas the keys. You're a man now, son, he said, his voice thick with pride. I got a tool. My brother got a trophy. I learned my lesson. I was the calculator. I was the help. My brothers were the heirs. They got the cufflinks, the hand-me-down watches, the keys to the kingdom. I got the tools to count their money. I once found a notebook in his desk. It was his old college ledger. Inside, he had written his goals. 1. Make first million by 30. 2. Build an empire. 3. Have sons to carry on the name. I read that last line over and over. Have sons. I was not a son. I was a rounding error. An oversight. One evening, I brought him a business plan I had written. I was 17. It was a plan to optimize our company's shipping logistics. I had spent weeks on it. I proved we could save 15% a year. He was on the phone, yelling at a broker. I waited patiently. When he hung up, he looked at me, his face red with stress. What is it, Ava? I'm busy. I handed him the folder. I found a way to save money, Dad. He opened it. He flipped through the pages. I saw his eyes scan the charts, the projections. He closed the folder and handed it back to me. He laughed. It was not a kind laugh. It was tired and patronizing. That's cute, sweetheart, he said. He ruffled my hair, a gesture I hated. This is very detailed. But you're thinking small. Leave the big picture to me and your brothers. Why don't you go help your mother plan the charity dinner? That's a better use of your talents. I stood there holding my folder. My plan. Mark and Thomas are at a baseball game, I said. They're networking, he snapped. It's important. You wouldn't understand. I walked out of his office. I went to my room. I did not cry. Crying was weakness, and weakness was not rewarded. I opened my laptop. I logged into a stock market simulation game. I took the $100,000 in fake money they gave me. I started trading. I used his strategies. I used my strategies. By the time I left for college, my fake portfolio was worth $4.2 million. I never told him. He never asked. I learned love in my house had a price. And I had been born deeply in debt. I went to Wharton, the best business school in the country. I did not go to parties. I did not join a sorority. I did not date. I worked. I lived in the library. I treated school like a job. I was determined to be so good, so undeniable, that he would finally have to see me. I graduated, summa cum laude, top of my class in finance. I was the valedictory speaker. I had sent him an invitation. I had reserved a front row seat for him. The day of graduation was bright and hot. The field was a sea of black caps. I scanned the front row as I walked to the podium. The seat I had saved for him was empty. My mother was there, in the second row, waving a little. But his seat was empty. I gave my speech. I talked about the future of global markets, about disruptive innovation. I spoke with confidence and clarity. My picture was on the front of the school's website. After the ceremony, I found my mother. "Where's Dad?" I asked. She couldn't meet my eyes. "Oh, honey, you know your father. A last-minute crisis. A merger in Chicago. He felt just terrible." I nodded. I knew the look on her face. It was the same look she had when he worked late on their anniversary. Later that night, I was scrolling through a financial blog. There was a picture on the sidebar. It was from a charity golf tournament. In Florida. The picture was time-stamped from that morning. There he was. My father. His arm was around a senator. He was laughing, holding a golf club. He wasn't in Chicago. He wasn't at a merger. He was playing golf. He didn't miss my graduation. He skipped it. I closed my laptop. I sat in my empty dorm room, surrounded by packed boxes. My diploma was on the desk. It felt like a receipt for a purchase no one wanted. A few months later, I was home, trying to figure out my next move. I had job offers from every major bank on Wall Street. But I still held out hope for a spot at my father's company. My brothers, Mark and Thomas, had a new passion. They had both dropped out of college. They had decided they were entrepreneurs. They cornered my father at dinner one night. "Dad, it's brilliant," Mark said, his eyes wide. "It's like Uber, but for high-end dog walkers. We'll call it Poochgo," Thomas added. "It's an app. Rich people will pay anything for their dogs." I almost choked on my water. "Have you done any market research?" I asked. "What's the liability insurance? What's the cost of customer acquisition? The market is already full of local services." My father held up a hand, silencing me. "Ava, please," he said, his voice cold. "Don't be negative. Your brothers are showing initiative." He looked at Mark and Thomas. His face was full of pride, the same pride I had been trying to earn my entire life. "I like it," he said. "It shows guts. It has potential." He took his checkbook out of his jacket pocket. He wrote a check. I saw the number. $2 million. He handed it to Mark. "Seed money," he said. "Don't let me down, boys." I stared at the check. I thought of my $4.2 million in fake money. I thought of my valedictory speech. I thought of my business plan for logistics, the one he called cute. $2 million. For an idea they came up with on a napkin. I had a perfect GPA from the best business school in the world. He told me I could start in the mailroom to learn the ropes. The startup, Poochgo, was dead in 6 months. The $2 million was gone. They had spent most of it on a fancy office with beanbag chairs and on research trips to Miami. My father found out. I was there. He just sighed. "Well, boys," he said, clapping them on the back. "That's the cost of doing business. You learned a valuable lesson." I finally understood. I looked at them. My father, beaming at his 2 failed sons. My brothers, laughing about their crazy year as tech moguls. My success was invisible. Their failure was an investment. It was never about merit. It was never about brains or hard work or results. It was about gender. It was about his ego. He saw them as extensions of himself. He saw me as competition, or worse, as irrelevant. That was the day I stopped trying to win his love. That was the day I stopped trying to earn his respect. I realized his pride wasn't about merit. It was about what he saw in the mirror. He wanted sons. He wanted heirs. I was just the daughter, the invisible one. And I realized if I was ever going to get what I deserved, I would not be given it. I would have to take it. I turned down the job at Goldman Sachs. I turned down the offer from Bain Capital. I went to my father. Dad, I said, I want to come work for the company. His face lit up. Finally, that's my girl. I was wondering when you'd come to your senses. Wall Street is a meat grinder. It's better to be with family. I had visions of running the analyst department, of managing the investment portfolio, of finally putting my degree to work. He walked me to my new office. It was not an office. It was a desk. A very nice, large mahogany desk. But it was in the open space right outside his office. This is my daughter, Ava, he announced to the floor. She's going to be my new chief operations assistant. The executive assistants smiled at me. They were polite. They knew what that title meant. Chief operations assistant was the most glorious, important-sounding title for a secretary ever invented. My brothers, Mark and Thomas, had actual offices. They were on the 30th floor, the executive floor. Their titles were Vice President of New Ventures. They had no ventures. They spent their days playing online poker and taking 2-hour lunches. My first task? Ava, sweetheart. My father called from his office. Be a dear and get me a coffee. Black, 2 sugars. And see if Thomas wants anything. I stood there for a full minute. Summa cum laude. Top of my class. And I was getting coffee. But I smiled. Of course, Dad. I got the coffee. I believed that hard work would earn respect. I believed if I just did the job and did it better than anyone, he would have to notice. I was wrong. I worked twice the hours of anyone else. I was the first one in the building, at 6 a.m. I was the last one to leave, often after 10 p.m. I did more than get coffee. I organized his entire life. I managed his schedule. I sat in on every meeting, silently taking notes. At first, they ignored me. I was just Ava, the secretary, the daughter. But I was listening. I read every memo. I learned every part of the business. I saw the waste. I saw the inefficiencies. I saw the lazy, stupid decisions my brothers were making. Mark had approved a shipping contract that was 20% above market rate. It was with a company owned by his college friend. I found 3 other shipping companies that could do the job for less. I wrote a detailed proposal. I proved we could save $5 million a year. I didn't email it. I waited until my father was in a good mood. Dad, I said, placing the 2-page summary on his desk. I was reviewing the shipping contracts. I found an inefficiency. We can save $5 million. He glanced at it. He grunted. Good work. See, you're learning. The next week, at the quarterly board meeting, he stood up. I'm pleased to announce, he said, that my team has identified a major cost-saving measure. Mark, he said, nodding to my brother, who was half asleep at the table. Good work on the shipping contracts. That's the kind of initiative I like to see. Mark blinked, confused. Thanks, Dad. All in a day's work. My father looked at him with pure pride. I was standing against the back wall, holding a pitcher of water. He took my work. He took my $5 million. And he gave the credit to my brother. My hands didn't even shake. I just poured the water. This happened again. And again. I rebuilt the entire filing system. He told the board his assistant team did it. I poached a top analyst from a rival firm. He told the board Thomas made the connection. I was the engine. They were the hood ornaments. I believed hard work would make me seen. It didn't. It just made me a better servant. It made me more efficient at making them look good. The breaking point came during the Kincaid acquisition. It was a $100 million deal. I had done all the work. I ran the valuation models. I did the due diligence. I found the skeletons in their closet. I knew that company better than its own CEO. We were in the main boardroom. My father, Mark, and Thomas sat at the table. I was sitting in a chair against the wall. I was there to run the PowerPoint. The Kincaid CEO looked at our offer. It's low, he said. Your valuation of our assets is insulting. My father started to bluster. We believe it's a fair offer. Mark jumped in. Yeah, our numbers are solid. Very solid. The CEO laughed. Your numbers don't account for our new patent. It's not in the public filing yet. My father and brothers looked blank. They didn't know. I did. I stood up. My heart was hammering. If I may, I said. My father glared at me. Sit down. I kept talking. The patent for the Series G processor is impressive. But our research shows it has a 40% failure rate above 80 degrees Celsius. It's unusable for military contracts, which is your primary target. That makes its current valuation zero. Our offer stands. The room went silent. The Kincaid CEO stared at me. His face had gone pale. He knew I was right. My father was furious. His eyes were slits. After the meeting, which we won, he pulled me aside. I thought he would say, "Thank you." I thought he would say, "Good job." "You embarrassed me," he whispered, his voice shaking with anger. "I what?" "I saved the deal. I saved us millions. You embarrassed me. You undermined me. You undermined your brothers. You made us look like we didn't know what we were doing. You are an assistant, Ava. You will not speak in a meeting again unless I speak to you first. Do you understand me?" I looked at him. I saw the jealousy in his eyes. It wasn't just ego. He was afraid of me. "Yes, sir," I said. I understood. I was wrong. Hard work would not earn respect. It only earned resentment. I stopped trying to be seen. I just worked. I kept my head down. I became the perfect, quiet, efficient machine. I ran the company from my little desk outside his door. I fixed my brother's mistakes before they hit his desk. I managed the schedules, the numbers, the contracts. He got used to it. He got lazy. He gave me his passwords. "Just handle it, Ava." He trusted me. He trusted me to be his servant. He trusted me to be the invisible daughter. He never saw me as a threat. That was his biggest mistake. It was a Tuesday night. It was almost midnight. The building was dark and silent. The cleaning crew had already left. I was there, of course. I was cleaning up another one of Thomas's messes. He had forgotten to file the quarterly expense reports for his entire department. It was a $2 million black hole. If I didn't find it and fix it by morning, we would be in violation of our SEC filings. I was on my father's computer. I was digging through his server files, looking for the original budget approvals. I found the budget folder, but my eye caught another file name in the same directory. It was labeled board_confidential_HR_review.docs. I was just curious. HR reviews were usually boring, but Board Confidential was a label he only used for big things. I clicked it. My hand moved before my brain could stop it. It was a memo from my father to the board of directors. My stomach went cold. I scrolled down past the corporate nonsense. And then I saw my name. Ava Hayes, Chief Operations Assistant. As we continue to plan the long-term future of this company, we must address the executive structure. While my daughter Ava has proven to be a competent assistant in managing day-to-day operations, it has become clear she lacks the necessary leadership instincts for further advancement. Her presence is becoming a complication in managing the future airship structure with Mark and Thomas. She is quiet, but not decisive. She is detailed, but not a visionary. Greater than I have spoken with her about her behavior in meetings, but she continues to overstep. Effective next quarter, we will begin to reassign her key duties to Mark and Thomas. This will give them the operational experience they need to take the reins. We will create a new, lower-level position for Ava in the marketing department, where her skills for detail can be better utilized. We will quietly phase her out of all executive-level access and board meeting attendance. I will handle this personally. It is for the good of the company. I read the words. Lacks leadership instincts. I thought of the Kincaid deal. The one I saved. Quietly phase her out. He wasn't just ignoring me. He wasn't just overlooking me. He was actively, secretly erasing me. He was taking my work, giving it to my brothers to make them look good, and then throwing me away like a piece of trash. Signed, Robert Hayes. My father. I expected to cry. I expected to feel broken. I had given my entire life to this man. I had given up friendships, relationships, and a career on Wall Street, all to earn his approval. And this was the answer. This was my reward. But I didn't cry. I didn't feel sad. I felt still. A terrible, cold, perfect stillness settled over me. The hum of the computer tower was the loudest sound in the world. He had finally given me the truth. He had written it down. The answer was no. You will never be good enough. You will never be one of us. You are not an heir. You are a complication. Okay, I whispered to the empty room. I closed the document. I did not delete it. I opened my email. I sent the document to a private, anonymous email address I had created years ago. Then I plugged a small flash drive into the USB port. I saved the file. I saved everything. I went back to the server. I found the files for Thomas's missing expense reports. I spent the next 2 hours fixing his $2 million mistake. I balanced the books. I filed the report. I did my job perfectly. I was no longer his daughter. I was no longer his assistant. I was a liability he had failed to phase out. I turned off his computer. I packed my bag. I walked out of the office. Something in me was not broken. It was focused. My father always said, "Business is war." He just never realized I was the enemy he should have been watching. I went to work the next day. And the next. I was the perfect assistant. I was a ghost in a blue blazer. I got his coffee. Black, 2 sugars. I scheduled his meetings. I smiled at my brothers when they asked me to find their missing expense reports. Of course, Thomas. I'll look for it. But something was different. The cold, still focused part of me had taken over. I was no longer working for his approval. I was working for information. He wanted to phase me out. He was too late. He had already given me all the keys. For 5 years, I had been his glorified secretary. I had his passwords. I had his server access. I had organized his entire digital life. He trusted me to handle everything because he believed I was too stupid or too loyal to ever look. He thought I was a failure. He was about to find out I was the only competent person in his entire company. And I was no longer on his side. My hunt began on a Friday night. I told everyone I was going to the spa for the weekend. A mental health break. Instead, I drove to a cheap motel 2 towns over. I paid in cash. I connected to their shaky Wi-Fi using a new, clean laptop I had bought with cash 2 days earlier. I had one goal, to find out why. Why was he phasing me out? Why was he giving my brothers credit for my work? I thought it was just ego. I thought it was just sexism. It was worse. He wasn't just propping up his sons. He was propping up his entire, rotting empire. I started where I always started, my brothers' messes. I pulled up the files for Poochgo, their failed dog-walking app. My father had written off the $2 million loss as research and development. I opened the bank statements for the startup. I followed the money. There was the $2 million check from our parent company. Then the expenses. $200,000 for a consultant. $300,000 for office leasing. $150,000 for app development. But then I saw it. A single wire transfer for $1 million. It was sent to a holding company. Atlas Ventures LLC. I had never heard of it. It wasn't one of our vendors. I used the company's legal database. I searched for Atlas Ventures LLC. I found the incorporation documents. It was a shell company, registered in the Cayman Islands. My heart was beating slowly, heavily. I dug deeper. I needed to know who owned it. The documents listed a local law firm as the registered agent. A dead end. But my father was lazy. He was arrogant. He believed no one would ever check. I went back to his private server files. The ones I had organized. I went to the folder marked Personal. Inside, Estate Planning. And there it was. A file named Atlas_beneficiary.pdf. I opened it. It was a trust agreement. The beneficiary of Atlas Ventures LLC, the company that had received $1 million from my brother's failed startup, was a single trust. The sole owner of that trust was Robert Hayes. My father. I sat back, the motel room's buzzing air conditioner filling the silence. It wasn't a failed startup. It was a washing machine. He had given my brothers $2 million. He had them lose $1 million of it by sending it to his own secret offshore account. Then he claimed the entire $2 million as a tax write-off. He was committing tax fraud. He was embezzling from his own company. And he was using his idiot sons as the perfect cover. Who would ever question their incompetence? They were famous for failing. He had turned their failure into his own personal profit center. My hands were shaking. Not with fear. With rage. A cold, quiet, methodical rage. This was bigger than me. This was bigger than being overlooked. This was a crime. I worked all weekend. I didn't sleep. I drank bitter, black coffee from the motel's dirty pot. I followed the thread. If he did it once, he did it again. I checked Mark's new media venture. Another $3 million write-off. And another wire transfer. This time, $1.5 million. To a different shell company. Pinnacle Holdings. I found the file for that, too. Also his. He had stolen, by my quick count, at least $20 million from his own company. All under the cover of investing in his sons. But the question was still why. He was rich. Why steal? The answer had to be on the books. I logged into the main accounting servers. I had the admin password. He had given it to me last year when the CFO was on vacation. Just handle the payroll, Ava. I pulled the company's real ledgers. The ones they didn't show the auditors. The ones I wasn't supposed to see. Then I opened another window. I pulled the public-facing quarterly reports. The ones filed with the SEC. The ones that made the stock price go up. I put them side by side. On the right, the public report. Q3 revenue, $150 million. On the left, the internal ledger. Q3 revenue, $105 million. I stared at the screen. He wasn't just stealing. He was lying. He was committing massive, systematic corporate fraud. The company wasn't a powerhouse. It was a house of cards. It was losing money. He was faking the earnings year after year to keep the stock price high and the board happy. The money he was stealing, that was his golden parachute. He was planning to get out, retire a hero, and leave the whole thing to collapse on my brothers, the board, and the shareholders. And he was phasing me out, because I was the only one smart enough to find it. I saw the Kincaid acquisition. The deal I had saved. He had booked the future, potential profits as current revenue. A $40 million lie. I kept digging. I found the offshore accounts. I found the falsified earnings. I found the shell companies in my brothers' names. They were the beneficial owners, but my father was the signatory. He had set them up to be the ones who would go to jail. He wasn't just a bad father. He was a monster. He would sacrifice his own sons to save himself. He had trusted no one would ever investigate. He had trusted that his daughter, his biggest failure, was just a quiet girl who got coffee. I spent the next 2 weeks in that motel, night after night. I called in sick. A bad case of the flu. I built a map. A complete, detailed, undeniable map of his entire web of fraud. Every email. Every wire transfer. Every falsified ledger. Every secret account. I copied it all onto a single encrypted flash drive. I became the world's leading expert on Robert Hayes. Not the father. The criminal. I had the bomb. Now I had to learn how to plant it. My first instinct was to just release it. Send it to the Wall Street Journal. Watch the world burn. But that was my father's way. Loud, explosive, egotistical. That was rage. My outline said, precision over rage. He had used the system to build his lies. I would use the system to build his cage. A public explosion would be messy. He had lawyers. He had friends. He could claim I faked the documents. He could say I was a bitter, fired employee. He could drag me through the mud. No, he wouldn't be destroyed by a reporter. He would be destroyed by the very institutions he feared. The IRS, the SEC, and his own board of directors. I needed to be a ghost. I needed to deliver the information with no fingerprints. My work began. I stopped going to the motel. I started going to the public library 30 miles away, in a town where no one knew my face. I used their public computers. I bought burner phones with cash. I created 3 new anonymous email accounts. Proton Mail. Encrypted. Untraceable. Section whistleblower.88 at protonmail.com irs.tip.line.01 at protonmail.com board.observer.12 at protonmail.com I spent a month carefully curating my packages. I couldn't send everything at once. That would be overwhelming. It would look like a data dump. I had to be a surgeon. I had to give each target the exact piece of information that would force them to act. Target 1, the IRS. They didn't care about SEC fraud. They cared about taxes. I drafted a simple email. Subject, anonymous tip, Hayes Industries tax fraud body. Robert Hayes is using shell corporations to evade corporate and personal income tax. See attached file. It is the incorporation document for Atlas Ventures LLC, registered in the Cayman Islands. See second attachment. It is a wire transfer of $1 million from Hayes Industries to this account, disguised as a consulting fee. This is one of over a dozen such accounts. I suggest you open an audit. You will find more. I attached only those 2 files. The hook. I hit send. Target 2, the SEC. They didn't care about taxes. They cared about shareholders. Subject, whistleblower report, Hayes Industries securities fraud Hayes body. Hayes Industries has been filing fraudulent quarterly earnings for 3 years. See attached. This is the internal Q3 ledger. Compare it to the public 10Q filing. You will see revenue has been artificially inflated by $45 million. The Kincaid acquisition was used to book false profits. This is a clear violation of securities law. I am a concerned employee. I will provide more as your investigation proceeds. I attached the 2 ledgers. Side by side. Undeniable. I hit send. Target 3, the board of directors. They didn't care about taxes or fraud, not really. They cared about their own liability. They cared about being sued by shareholders. I had to scare them. I picked one board member. Eleanor Vance. She was the oldest, the most cautious, the one who always asked my father hard questions, and the one he always charmed and dismissed. Subject, private and confidential for your eyes only body. Ms. Vance. You are being lied to. Robert Hayes is committing massive fraud. He is using the company as his personal bank account. He is setting up his sons to take the fall. He is retiring before the entire house of cards collapses. When it does, you, the board, will be held liable. You have been negligent. He is retiring a hero, and you will be left with the lawsuits. See attached. It is a memo from Robert to you. The real one. Notice the section where he details his plan to phase me out. I am his daughter. The one who has been fixing his books for 5 years. He is trying to silence the only person who knows the truth. Ask him about Atlas Ventures. Ask him about the Kinkraid deal. Dear Job. I attached the memo. The one he wrote about me. Board_confidential_HR_review.docs. The ultimate betrayal. I hit send. I shut down the computer. I left the library. I drove home. My father always said, information is power. He was right. I had just given all the power away. The next few months were the hardest of my life. I had to go to work every day. I had to smile. I had to get his coffee. I had to sit in meetings and watch him lie to the faces of the board members. Eleanor, you look wonderful today. Let's talk dividends. I watched Eleanor Vance. She didn't smile back. She just watched him. Robert, I have a few questions about the Kincaid numbers. I felt a small, cold victory. The seeds were growing. I saw the quiet panic start. A team of new auditors showed up. My father told everyone it was routine. I knew what they were. They were from the SEC. He started yelling more. He was on the phone, screaming at his bankers. He was a rat in a trap, and he didn't even know who said it. He trusted no one would investigate. But I did. He thought he was the storm. He never saw the quiet. He never saw the daughter who sat in the corner listening. He never saw me coming. The retirement gala was a monument to his ego. It was held at the New Art Museum, in the wing he had donated. His name was on the wall in giant silver letters, the Robert Hayes Wing. The room was filled with hundreds of people. Politicians, bankers, board members. All of them had gotten rich off his lies. They were there to celebrate him. The theme was a legacy of vision. There were ice sculptures of his first building. Waiters passed champagne and oysters. A string quartet played softly. I was there. I had to be. It was for the family. I wore a simple black dress. I felt like a shadow. My brothers were in their glory. Mark and Thomas, in matching tuxedos, were shaking hands, clapping men on the back. Our father, the legend, I heard Mark say. People came up to me all night. They didn't know what to say. Ava dear, a board member's wife dripping in diamonds. You look healthy. Your father must be so proud of your brothers. Taking over the company. What a legacy. He must be, I said. My voice was flat. Another one. A banker. Ava. Still helping your dad out? That's sweet. A good daughter. Don't you worry, your brothers will take care of you. I just smiled. A tight, cold smile. I knew things they didn't. I knew the SEC investigation was in its final stage. I knew the IRS had frozen 2 of his offshore accounts. I knew the board had held a secret meeting without him just yesterday. The trap was set. The doors were locked. Tonight was not a retirement. It was a funeral. He just didn't know it. Then the lights dimmed. A spotlight hit the stage. My father walked out. He looked tan, powerful, victorious. He raised his arms, and the room exploded in a standing ovation. He tapped the microphone. Thank you. Thank you. Please. He beamed. He soaked it in. He looked at my brothers, who were standing next to the stage. A man is nothing without his legacy, he began. His voice was thick with fake emotion. And I am a lucky man. Because I have my sons. He motioned for Mark and Thomas to join him. He put his arms around them. I owe everything to my sons, he said, his voice booming. They are the future. They have the vision, the guts, the strength. They are my heirs. They are my legacy. The crowd applauded again. I stood near the back by the heavy glass doors. I just watched. My name was nowhere. My work was nowhere. I was the ghost who had built the house, and he was giving the keys to the fools who had tried to burn it down. He saw me. He looked right at me, standing in the back. His eyes were cold. He was dismissing me one last time in front of everyone. He smirked. And my daughter, Ava, he said. The crowd chuckled. They knew my role. The helper. The secretary. Well, he said, shrugging. She just never had what it takes. The room filled with laughter. Polite, dismissive laughter. My heart didn't break. It went perfectly still. This was the moment. I started walking. My heels clicked on the marble floor. Click, click, click. The sound was sharp. The laughter died down. People turned to look. The sea of tuxedos parted for me. I did not stop at the steps. I walked right up onto the stage. My father's smile faltered. He looked confused. Ava, what are you doing? Get off the stage. My brothers looked embarrassed. I walked straight to him. I stopped right in front of him. I looked him in the eye. He looked old. And for the first time he looked afraid. I held out the small black box. The one I had bought months ago. It was wrapped in a simple, elegant red ribbon. My voice was not a shout. It was a whisper. But the microphone picked it up. The entire room heard me. From your biggest failure, I said. I placed the box in his hand. I turned. I did not run. I walked. I walked off the stage. I walked past my brother's pale, confused faces. I walked past the silent, staring board members. I walked through the main atrium and straight to the giant glass doors. I didn't look back. I pushed the door open and stepped out into the cold night air. As the heavy door clicked shut behind me, a new sound cut through the silence. It came from inside the ballroom. It was amplified by the microphone. It was not a word. It was a sound. A raw, guttural, animal sound of pure, absolute ruin. It was his scream. He must have opened the box. He must have seen the small, black flash drive. He must have read the note I had tucked inside. It was very simple. The IRS, the SEC, and the board have their copies. Your accounts are frozen. You are done. Ava. I didn't go home. I went to a hotel I had pre-booked under a different name. I sat in a clean, empty room and turned on the television. I ordered room service. A club sandwich and a glass of wine. I was not celebrating. I was just finished. The first 24 hours were silent. The gala had ended in chaos. The news channels reported a medical emergency involving my father. Then, the storm I had built finally made landfall. Day 1, 8 a.m. The Wall Street Journal broke the story. The SEC whistleblower. The IRS investigation. The headline was brutal. Hayes Industries implodes. CEO Robert Hayes accused of massive fraud. Stock halted. The article quoted anonymous sources and leaked documents. My documents. Day 1, 9 and 30 seconds a.m. My phone, the one I had kept, started to ring. It was Mark. I let it go to voicemail. He called again. And again. He sent a text. Ava, what did you do? What did you do? Call me. Now. Dad is locked in his office. Ava, the company accounts are frozen. I can't pay my rent. What is happening? Answer me, you bitch. Day 1, 11 a.m. The local news channels had cameras outside the Hayes Industries building. I watched, eating my club sandwich, as two men in dark suits walked through the lobby. Then two more. And two more. They were carrying boxes. They were from the FBI. The cheer-in read, Federal agents raid Hayes Industries HQ. Day 1, 2 p.m. A new call. My mother. I answered. Her voice was a hysterical whisper. Ava? Oh God, Ava, please. What's happening? Your father. He won't come out. There are men in the house. They're taking his computers. Ava, you have to fix this. Tell them it's a mistake. Please. You're destroying this family. No, Mom, I said. My voice was calm. He already did. I hung up. Day 1, 6 p.m. The evening news. It was the lead story. I watched my father. Robert Hayes. The legend. He was being led out of his office in handcuffs. He wasn't the powerful man from the gala. He wasn't the titan. He was just a man. An old, terrified, gray-faced man. He had his coat over his head, but it slipped. The camera caught his face. His eyes were empty. He was gone. They put him in the back of a black car. I watched until the car turned the corner and disappeared. I turned off the TV. Day 2, 9 a.m. The board of directors released a statement. Robert Hayes had been terminated. Mark and Thomas Hayes had been terminated. The company was filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The stock, when it resumed trading, was worthless. The empire was dead. It had collapsed under the weight of its own lies. All day the calls kept coming. My father. He called from his lawyer's phone. He called from a payphone at the booking station. 12 missed calls. He left one voicemail. I listened to it. His voice was not the booming, angry sound I had known all my life. It was a rasp. A broken, sobbing whisper. Ava, why? It was all for you. For the family. For the legacy. You don't understand. You don't understand what you've done. You've ruined us. You've ruined me. You were my daughter, my. He broke down. He had said, "You don't understand what you've done." I listened to the message. Then I pressed delete. "Oh, I understand perfectly," I said to the empty room. I was the only one who ever did. I understood every fake ledger, every offshore account, every single lie. I understood. And I was done. It took 6 months for the dust to settle. The company was shattered. Hayes Industries was a carcass picked clean by lawyers, creditors, and the federal government. The lawsuits from shareholders were in the hundreds. My father took a plea deal. He was a broken man. He gave up everything. He testified against his own bankers. In exchange for his cooperation, and due to his age, he was sentenced to 5 years in a minimum security prison. He lost his name. He lost his money. He lost his legacy. His legacy was ash. A warning. A case study taught in business schools about corporate greed and hubris. My brothers were wiped out. The accounts my father had put in their names were seized. They were not charged. Their lawyers successfully argued they were too incompetent to be complicit in the fraud. It was the only time their failure had ever served them. Mark now works at a hardware store. He's an assistant manager. Thomas is in and out of rehab. My mother lives in a small condo. She doesn't speak to me. I attended the bankruptcy auction. I sat in the back. No one recognized me. I was just a woman in a business suit. They sold it all off. The desks. The art. The patents. The building. They sold it for pennies on the dollar. A new company bought the best assets. The Kincaid patents, the shipping routes I had optimized, the client lists. The new company was called H Strategic Solutions. H for Ava Hayes. I had spent the last 6 months not in hiding, but in meetings. I went to the Wall Street firms that had tried to hire me out of college. I showed them my work. The real work. The logistics plan he called cute. The Kincaid valuation he stole. I didn't show them the stolen files. I showed them my brain. They gave me the backing. Today, I am sitting in my new office. It's on the 30th floor. The executive floor. The floor my brothers used to have. My father's old office, 1 floor below, sits empty. Dark. A tomb. I look out the window. It's the same view he had. The city skyline, stretching out to the horizon. But it feels different. It feels clean. I run my company with one rule: honesty. We do good work. We sign clean contracts. Our books are open. I sleep better than I ever have. I don't have to be the first one in and the last one to leave. I hire good people, and I trust them. I give them credit for their work. I leave the office at 5. Sometimes I think about my father's last voicemail. You don't understand. He was wrong. I was the only one who did. He was a gambler who thought he could never lose. He was a king who thought his daughter was a pawn. He forgot that a pawn, if it's smart enough and patient enough, can cross the whole board and become a queen. People call what I did revenge. They call it cold. They call it brutal. I look at his empty office, a dark square in the building across the street. I sip my coffee. I call it inheritance. He just didn't leave me his money or his name. He left me his mess. And I cleaned it up. My inheritance wasn't permission to rule. It was the power to take what I had already earned. And I finally came to collect.